I can take you round with me wherever I go. That'd be extremely useful. You heard a few minutes ago from Lebanon. I want to tell you something that he didn't tell you, and probably should have done. He became a street child at the age of 7, and he did so to feed not just himself, but his 5-year-old sister. His father was not ideal, he was an alcoholic. He drank away a great deal of the money that was actually collected by Lebanon. His mother went out to clean to help feed the family, but she too found most of her money drunk by his father. And he went on and he prevailed, and he and his sister have achieved a great deal since then. And I make that point firstly because he didn't and should have done, and secondly because he is living proof that street children are not lost causes, and they can achieve what he has achieved if we are in a position to help them as tonight. I'd like first, if I may, though it's not really my role to do so, but I'd like first, if I may, to thank you all for being here. One of the things about our country is that whenever something tragic happens in different parts of the world, the British nation puts its hands in its pockets for people at home and overseas to a greater extent than almost any other country in the world. And when we look around at our country, we see the things that are wrong, most of them political. Just think of the everyday people in this country who push politics aside but will actually contribute to help people who are in need, either in a far-off country of which they know nothing, and which they have never visited and may never visit. And I think that is one of the glories of our country, as are the charities that exist to help other people. Now, I've been connected with this charity since its inception. In fact, it was launched in number 10 when I was there. In the subsequent period, it's achieved a very great deal, but there is so much more to be done. And I was attracted to it because in 1992 I went to Rio for a summit on the climate, but I also had the opportunity of seeing the problem of street children in Brazil. And I hadn't realised that they didn't just exist in Brazil, but they existed on every continent, and to a size that is really quite shaming for the human race. Now, like many of you, I have children, and like some of you, I have grandchildren. And I look at their lives and how they live and the opportunities they have, despite the difficulties of the modern generation. But I look at their lives and I compare them to the lives of street children. And I know that disparity cannot possibly be right. No child, wherever they are, should be left cold, hungry, or uncared for. It is a basic concept of humanity that children should not be so vulnerable. And yet, it happens in great numbers on every continent. Where children should be loved, too often they're abandoned. Where they should be safe, they're open to exploitation, abuse, and violence. And that's so shocking, so alien to our instincts, so difficult to comprehend unless you see it or live it. The too many authorities and too many people, many of whom should know better, turn a blind eye to the plight of those children. They're ignored and forgotten when they should be at the very forefront of our conscience. And our job, as I see it, at the Consortium for Street Children, is to be there for as many as we possibly can, and to try and prick the conscience of those who look away when they should be looking to help. Do I exaggerate? I think not. I think I don't exaggerate. And the financial and cost pressures across the world are adding to the problem that exists. Were those problems the fault of children? Of course they were. But are children having to bear the burden of what is happening? Yes, they are. Let me share with you A couple of illustrations of that. Musa is 11 years old. He was in Nigeria. He moved to Ghana, and he begs on the streets for food for his siblings and for the basics of life. Now that's a bland statement. Just think about what it means for just a moment. An 11-year-old boy begging for his next meal. No home, no adult care, no change of clothes, no regular food, no proper bed, no education, no medicine if he's sick, no dentist, no doctor if he's in pain, no vaccines against disease. Each day, Musa faces humiliation and rejection. People pass him by as if he was invisible. Far too often, there is an indifference where there should be a compassion. And if his begging is unsuccessful, he has to borrow from a fellow beggar, hoping to be able to pay it back the following day or the day after that. Now, Musa's story is not an exceptionally emotional story. I have spared you the worst of those. But the point is this: for far too many young children, Musa's way of life is as typical as it is routine for him. As typical and routine as it is utterly unacceptable. His young life is a throwback to the poverty we read about hundreds of years ago. And yet it is happening in our world today, in countries richer than they ever believed they would be, in many cases. And then there is Gina, a 13-year-old girl in Kenya. A broken family and neglect sent her onto the streets. Gina once had a dream of going to school, to study, and to make something of her dismal life. But beaten up and abused by her father, escape seemed her only option. Both Musa and Gina were found and cared for by street workers with whom we have partnerships, which is how, of course, we know their stories. But there are so many others who have not yet been found. So many others who are not being helped, whose whole world is one of hardship and rejection, without any comfort, without any affection, and no doubt, in the eyes of those children, without any hope either. To whom can they turn, these children? Too often not the authorities, and in some countries not even the police. As one child in Sierra Leone told us, and I quote, though I have softened the quote, this is what she said: "The streets are not safe. The police abused me twice. The first time it was 2 policemen, the second time it was only 1. Where on earth could that little girl have gone to feel safe?" It is a fact in our mercenary world and the purpose of the seeking that money is the root of all progress. But our charity, we know what to do with it when we get it. And we know how to do it. And insofar as we are able, within the resources that we have, we do it. But with more help, with your help, in whatever way you are able to offer, we can do so much more to reduce the injustice of life for those children. Would we tolerate the hardships they face for our own children, or our neighbours' children, or any children that actually fell in our care or in our way? The answer is that we wouldn't, because we couldn't. And the fact that we don't know these children, that they're far away, and often from countries we may never visit, does not alter the fact that they remain children in desperate need of help. You may never know the children that you have, nor may they ever know you. And yet with your support, their lives could be transformed. And even just by being here this evening, and hearing their stories and that going away and thinking about them and talking to other people about them, you're doing far more than those children ever imagined people would do for them. And for that tonight, on behalf of all those probably millions of children, though we can't be quite sure how many millions, on behalf of all those millions of children who could never be here to do it themselves, I thank you for what you might do from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being here.